I'm Aubrey. Sitting alone in my now quiet house, the silence is almost deafening. The memories of that fateful day still haunt me, like a shadow that refuses to fade. It all started with a dream promotion that turned into a nightmare. I remember the day I received the email like it was yesterday. It was as if a golden ticket had landed in my inbox. Director of Engineering. I must have read the subject line a dozen times before the words truly sank in. After years of late nights, missed family gatherings, and pouring my heart and soul into my work, it had finally happened. I was going to have a 6-figure salary, a corner office with a view that wasn't just a dull wall. I practically floated out of my office that day, a mix of disbelief and pure joy coursing through me. The first person I called was my husband, Ryan. He hooped and hollered on the phone, promising me the fanciest celebratory dinner he could imagine. The second call was to my dad. His reaction was more subdued, but his pride was palpable. "I always knew you had it in you, kiddo," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You earned every penny of this." That weekend, we all gathered at our favorite French restaurant. It was me, Ryan, my parents, and Ryan's parents, Victoria and Henry. The atmosphere was electric. Champagne was flowing, and for the first time in a long time, the future seemed like an open road bathed in sunlight. My dad, a retired carpenter who had spent his life working with his hands, just watched me with a gentle smile, occasionally shaking his head in disbelief. But Victoria, my mother-in-law, was different. Her enthusiasm was almost too much. "A director? Oh my goodness," she exclaimed, clapping her hands. "That sounds so important. And the salary, you said? My goodness, Ryan, you married a powerhouse." At first, it was flattering, but her questions soon felt more like an interrogation. "So, what does a salary like that look like after taxes?" she asked, leaning in conspiratorially. "Are you getting a big bonus too? You two must be thinking about a bigger house now, right? Maybe one with a guest wing." Ryan just laughed and squeezed my hand under the table. "Mom, let her enjoy the moment. We're just celebrating tonight." But Victoria waved him off. "Oh, I'm just so proud. It's wonderful to see our children do so well, especially after all the sacrifices we made for them." She sighed dramatically, looking at Henry, who just grunted and continued eating his escargot. A small warning bell went off in my head, but I silenced it. I told myself she was just excited, just being a proud mom. The next few weeks were a blur of new responsibilities and exciting plans. Ryan and I started seriously looking at houses, browsing listings for places with large gardens and space for a future family. We were building the life I had always dreamed of, the one I had worked so hard to afford. Then, on a Wednesday evening, Victoria called Ryan. I was in the kitchen making dinner and could only hear his side of the conversation. It was a series of short responses. "Yeah. Okay, I see. Well, I'll have to talk to her about it. No, I understand." He hung up the phone, looking pale and stressed. "What was that about?" I asked, stirring the soup. He fidgeted with his phone, avoiding my eyes. "Oh, just Mom. She has an idea she wants to discuss with us." "An idea?" I asked. "Yeah, about finances and planning for the future of the whole family," he said in a rush. "She wants to come over Sunday. She said she's bringing some documents." That warning bell in my head started ringing again, this time like a fire alarm. Documents? What kind of documents? The entire week, Ryan was edgy and anxious. Every time I tried to ask him what his mom wanted, he'd just shrug and say he didn't know the details, that we should just hear her out. Sunday arrived, and so did my in-laws. Victoria walked in carrying a leather briefcase, a smug look on her face that immediately made my skin crawl. She sat us down at our dining room table as if she were a high-powered executive about to take over a company. Henry sat beside her, looking as uninterested as ever. Ryan sat next to me, refusing to meet my gaze. Victoria opened the briefcase and pulled out a stack of papers neatly held together with a paperclip. It was a spreadsheet, a multi-tabbed, color-coded one. "All right," she began, her voice dripping with condescension. "Now that Aubrey is finally in a position to contribute meaningfully, your father and I have put together a long-term family financial plan. We think you'll find it very fair." She turned the spreadsheet around. My eyes scanned the columns. There were headers for gross income, taxes, net income, and then family contribution. My heart stopped. Next to family contribution, under a column with my name on it, was a number that represented 40% of my new monthly salary. Salary *0. 4. It was an amount larger than our mortgage payment on the house we were dreaming of. I stared at the number, then at her, my mouth hanging open. What is this?" I finally managed to stammer out. "It's our retirement plan, dear," Victoria said, as if explaining to a child. "Henry's pension isn't what it used to be, and the Social Security is a joke. We can't afford the lifestyle we deserve. With your new income, you can easily support us. It's a child's duty. After all, we're a family. We take care of each other." I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked at Ryan, pleading with my eyes for him to say something, to stop this madness. He just stared at the table, wringing his hands. "Mom, I think this is a bit extreme," he mumbled. "Extreme? Ryan, this is about securing your parents' future," she snapped, her voice rising. "Don't you want us to be comfortable? Look at everything we did for you." She then turned her sharp gaze back to me. "This is what you do when you have money, Aubrey. You provide for the people who got you where you are. Your selfishness is astonishing." I finally found my voice, a cold rage washing over me. "Victoria, there is absolutely no way I'm giving you 40% of my salary. That's insane." "It's not a request," she said, her voice dropping to a menacing tone. "It's what's happening." The tension in the room was so thick I could barely breathe. Ryan was useless, a statue of indecision. Henry was still looking at the tablecloth. It was just me against her. And then my phone rang. I saw the caller ID. It was Dad. I almost ignored it, but I was desperate. I needed an ally. I answered, my hand shaking. "Dad," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Can you and Mom come over right now?" An hour later, my parents were sitting on our couch facing my in-laws. The spreadsheet was still on the table, a declaration of war. I had explained the situation to my dad in a panicked call. He had said very little, only, "We're on our way." Now he was listening intently as Victoria, emboldened by a new audience, launched into her tirade again, painting me as a greedy, ungrateful daughter-in-law who was hoarding her new-found wealth. "She doesn't understand family," Victoria concluded, shaking her head in feigned disappointment. "She doesn't understand loyalty or respect for her elders." My dad had been silent the whole time, his hands resting on his knees, his face unreadable. He let her finish, and then let the ugly silence hang in the air for a few long seconds. Then he slowly leaned forward, his eyes locking onto Victoria's. They were as cold and hard as steel. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The quiet authority in his tone made everyone in the room flinch. "Victoria," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "Since when did you decide my daughter's salary was your retirement fund?" The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria's face went from smugness to pure fury. In that moment, I knew our lives were about to change forever. "How dare you?" she hissed, her voice low and venomous. "This is a family matter. This has nothing to do with you." "It has everything to do with me," my dad replied, his voice never wavering. "That's my daughter you're trying to extort. Her success, her money, her future. It became my business the second you slid that ridiculous spreadsheet across the table." He gestured to the spreadsheet with a dismissive wave of his hand. Extort? Victoria shrieked, clutching her chest as if she'd been physically attacked. We are his parents. We sacrificed everything for Ryan. We paid for his college. We helped with the down payment on your first apartment. This isn't extortion. It's reimbursement. It's what is owed to us. I watched Ryan, my husband, the man who was supposed to be my partner and protector. He was shrinking in his chair, his face a miserable shade of gray. He looked like a child caught between two warring parents. And in that moment, my rage was replaced by a deep and chilling disappointment. Ryan, Victoria cried, turning her fury on him. Are you going to just sit there and let this man, this carpenter, insult your mother? Tell him how much we've done for you. Ryan flinched. Mom, please, he mumbled, his eyes darting between my father and his mother. Let's just talk about this calmly. There's nothing to talk about, my dad said, his gaze still fixed on Victoria. My daughter isn't an ATM. Her career isn't a winning lottery ticket for you to cash in. She earned her position through years of hard work you know nothing about. You don't get to show up with your hand out the moment she finally gets what she deserves. Suddenly, Victoria's entire demeanor changed. The rage vanished, replaced by a flood of crocodile tears. Her shoulders began to shake, and she buried her face in her hands. You just don't understand, she sobbed, her voice muffled. We're scared. Henry's health isn't good. The pension is barely enough to cover the mortgage. We see our friends going on cruises, enjoying their golden years, and we're stuck living frugally. We just wanted a little help, a little security. We thought our own son and his wealthy wife would want to help us. Henry, who had been a silent presence on the couch, finally stirred. He reached out and patted Victoria's back awkwardly. Now, Vic, it's all right. It was a masterful performance, and I could see it working on Ryan. His face softened with guilt. He was about to speak, to give in to something. I could feel it. But before he could, my mother, who had been sitting quietly beside my dad, finally spoke. Her voice was soft, but it cut through the room like a knife. Victoria, what you're asking for isn't a little help. You're demanding nearly half of Aubrey's take-home pay. You're demanding she and Ryan put their own dreams on hold, a house, a family, so you can go on cruises. That isn't asking for security. That's demanding a lifestyle on my daughter's back. The tears stopped as quickly as they'd started. Victoria's head snapped up, her eyes flashing. Oh, and I suppose you two won't be taking any of her money, she sneered. My dad actually laughed, a short, sharp bark of disbelief. Victoria, the day I can't pay my own bills is the day I die. We raised our daughter to be independent, to stand on her own 2 feet. We're proud of her for it. The goal is for your kids to do better than you, not for them to prop you up so you can live beyond your means. You have no idea what you're talking about. Victoria, now fully cornered, spat, Ryan knows. Ryan understands. He's been telling me for months how worried he was, how you two were struggling before this promotion. He knew something had to be done. The room went silent. I felt the air leave my lungs as if I'd been punched in the stomach. I turned my head slowly to look at Ryan. His face had gone completely white. He was staring at his mother with wide, panicked eyes, shaking his head almost imperceptibly. Struggling? We weren't struggling. We were careful. We lived within our means, saving for a future we were building together. We had a budget. We weren't deprived. His words to his mother were a gross, manipulative exaggeration. Ryan, I whispered, my voice barely audible. What is she talking about? She's twisting things, he said quickly, his voice high-pitched. I just mentioned that things were a little tight sometimes. That we were saving hard for a down payment. That's all. But Victoria saw her opening. She pounced on his weakness like a predator. Oh, don't be so modest, honey. You were worried sick. You said you felt like you were failing as a provider. This wasn't just my idea coming over here today. We've been planning this. I told you I'd draw up the documents to make it official. And just like that, everything clicked into place. The vague phone call, his anxiety all week, his refusal to tell me what the meeting was about, the way he avoided my eyes. It wasn't because he was afraid of his mother's ambush. It was because he was part of it. He hadn't been a victim caught in the crossfire. He had been a collaborator. He had stood by and let me walk into this trap, knowing exactly what was waiting for me. He had listened to his mother plot to plunder my salary, my achievement, and he hadn't said a single word. All the anger I felt toward Victoria coalesced into a single, laser-focused beam on Ryan. The betrayal was so immense, so profound, it stole my breath. I looked at him, truly looked at him, and saw a stranger. You knew, I said, my voice flat and dead. You knew what this was about. That spreadsheet, her entire speech. You knew it was coming. Ryan opened his mouth to deny it, to lie. But he couldn't. His eyes filled with a pathetic, desperate guilt. He just stared at me, his silence screaming the truth louder than any confession ever could. The silence in the room stretched, thin and brittle. It was the silence of a bomb about to go off. Ryan's pathetic, guilty face was the only answer I needed. The man I had loved, the man I had built a life with, had conspired with his mother to turn me into their personal piggy bank. The sense of betrayal was a physical thing, a cold, heavy weight settling in my chest, making it hard to breathe. My dad stood up. He didn't make a big show of it, but his movement commanded everyone's attention. Then he walked over to the dining table, picked up Victoria's briefcase, and held it out to her. I think it's time for you and Henry to leave, he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. Victoria snatched the briefcase from his hand, her face a mask of indignation. You can't kick us out. This is our son's home. No, I said, finding my voice at last. It came out cracked and raw, but it was mine. It's my home, too. And right now, I want you to go. She shot me a look of pure hatred, a look that promised retribution. You'll regret this, Aubrey. You'll come crawling back when you realize what a terrible mistake you've made. Ryan is our son. His loyalties will always be with us. She grabbed Henry's arm and practically yanked him off the couch. They stormed out, slamming the front door behind them with a force that rattled the pictures on the wall. The echo of the slam faded, leaving behind a thick, suffocating silence. My parents looked at me, their faces etched with concern. Ryan was still frozen in his chair, staring at the floor. The picture of a man who knew he had just destroyed his entire world. Aubrey, my mom said softly. We can stay or we can go. Whatever you need. Go, I whispered. I need to talk to Ryan alone. My dad hesitated, looking from my face to Ryan's slumped form. I saw the protective fury still simmering in his eyes, the desire to tear Ryan apart for what he'd done. But he just gave a slow, solemn nod. We'll be at home. Call us for anything. Anything at all, kiddo. He squeezed my shoulder, a gesture of solidarity that anchored me. And then they left, closing the door gently behind them. Now it was just the two of us, me and the stranger who wore my husband's face. For a long time, neither of us spoke. I walked over to the window and stared out at the darkening street, wrapping my arms around myself. The celebratory joy I'd felt just days ago seemed like a distant memory from someone else's life. Finally, he spoke. Aubrey, I'm so sorry. I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. Sorry. What exactly are you sorry for, Ryan? Are you sorry your plan didn't work? Are you sorry you got caught? Or are you actually sorry for lying to me and conspiring with your mother to steal from me? It wasn't like that, he said, his voice pleading as he finally stood up. She gets these ideas in her head. She was so worried about their finances and she kept going on and on about it for weeks. I just didn't know how to handle it. I told her it was a bad idea, but she wouldn't listen. So, your solution was to say nothing to me? I spun around to face him, my voice rising. Your solution was to let her draw up financial documents demanding 40% of my income. To let her ambush me in my own home? You said you were planning this. She said you told her we were struggling. I was just trying to manage her, he insisted, his hands flapping uselessly at his sides. I thought if I let her come here and present her crazy idea, you would say no, and that would be the end of it. I thought it would be easier than fighting with her about it for another.